Mary Magdalene was taught to read and write at an early age, being well read in religious texts such as the Tanakh, the Egyptian Book of the Dead, and other pieces of religious literature, all used to train her to become a priestess like her mother. In her childhood, the family moved to Sidon, where she continued her education and was in training for the priesthood when she met Jesus. Sidon, a Phoenician city under Roman control, housed several temples to the Roman gods and Jesus. Wanting to be able to study freely without worry of the Judean religious authorities discovering what he was doing, chose it as the best place, given its closeness. He walked its streets, taking in all the sights, smells, and sounds of the marketplace and people going about their daily lives. He would have heard the different languages of the empire and beyond, as people as far away as China came to trade and do business there. Being 15 and alone in a large city like this must have been overwhelming for him. Finding lodging within the local Jewish community, Jesus quickly found his way to the Roman temples, eager to convince the priests there to teach him all they knew. It was here, at one of these temples, that he and Mary Magdalene met for the first time. Unfortunately for us, their exact first meeting isn't known, nor what they said to one another, but whatever happened between them, it left a mark on both. Soon the two became friends, Magdalene's parents not being as strict as traditional Jews on the separation between genders. And for his part, being raised as an Essene taught Jesus to value women and to question the separation and strict laws regarding interactions between the sexes in traditional Judaism, so he had no issue with befriending a girl. He soon also became friends with Martha and Lazarus, all for spending time together discussing theology and Jewish law from both a traditional and Essene perspective. Jesus spent months in Sidon, but, like much of his travels, we don't know how long exactly he spent there. What we do know is that after he soaked up all the knowledge he could from the priests, he departed, wishing Mary Magdalene and her siblings well and promising to see them again. From Sidon, Jesus went to Persia, which at the time was under the rule of the Hasmonaean Dynasty, where he hoped to study Zoroastrianism, the national religion of the Persians, and a spiritual path as old as Judaism itself, stretching back to the time of Moses. Like traditional Judaism, Zoroastrianism taught that there was only one supreme God, called Ahura Mazda, the creator of all that is and all that cannot be seen. At his service, he had angels like Jehovah did, and the doctrine of heaven and hell were also taught. If different than the Gan Eden and Gehenna of Judaism and the later Christian version of heaven and hell. And like Judaism, both its traditional and Essene branches, Zoroastrianism preached everyone had free will, and they determined their own path through their actions. Jesus stayed in Babylon while in Persia, where his great-grandfather Hillel the Elder hailed from and where sizable Jewish community was established. In Babylon, the young spiritual seeker found many temples dedicated to Ahura Mazda, as well as encountering the Pharisaic sect of Judaism. The Pharisees in Babylon were excellent Torah and Tanakh scholars, better than even those in Judea. The Babylonian Talmud, still a long way from being compiled, began its existence in those days in the forms of lectures, teachings, and stories. While in the city, Jesus took advantage of this, sitting in on classes and taking notes. It was through these learning sessions and the lessons taught by his great-grandfather Menahem that Jesus formed his lasting opinion on the Pharisee branch. Like Menahem, he didn't necessarily believe the stories were wrong. He believed in some, but did not believe any Jew needed to believe them or accept the traditions of the elders as coming from God. This, of course, put him at odds with the movement, but this tension did not come until much later during his years as a rabbi. There's no evidence that Jesus was outspoken against the Pharisees in his teenage years, but he disagreed with them and never wavered in that. From Persia, he continued into Anatolia, modern-day Turkey, where he studied in Ankara, and from there went to Rome itself. Rome at this time and for many centuries after Jesus was the center of Europe and a vast multi-ethnic city dominated, of course, by Italians. Like Babylon, Rome had a sizable Jewish population, many families having lived there for 3 generations by this point. Most were of Judean background, but some were converts. And, to add to this, the Romans were descended from Edomites who came with Aeneas after the fall of Troy, and thus descendants, like the Jews, of Abraham through his grandson Esau, the twin brother of Jacob. In Rome, Jesus was able to study the Roman religion in depth from the source, and he ate it up. He learned of the gods and their stories. About the Lares, the guardian household spirits every Roman family had. And he learned of the Roman concept of the afterlife, of the Elysian fields, the Roman concept of paradise. He passed a year in Rome, leaving when he was 18, and this time he headed for India.